Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to Emma's Folk and Global Managers Meetup number 3. Lovely to meet you, to see you all, and to meet you too, to see you, so many of you here. My name is Michelle Ronquillo, and I am Emma's event manager. Just a little bit about us. Within Emma, we unite music managers organizations across 13 European countries, which represent more than 2,000 managers across Europe. We've made it our mission to strengthen European managers globally through the Empower program, which encompasses education, advocacy, networking, and research. Empower is a project co-funded by the European Union. If you want to know more about us, or if you want to stay up to date with the upcoming events, make sure to visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our WhatsApp group. Sign up to our newsletter, and also you can find all the links in the chat in a little bit. Within the chat, there is also a manager's contact list where you can leave your contact details and find the details of others. And also, when you log off Zoom at the end of the session, a super brief survey will pop up. So please take a moment to fill it out, as your feedback helps us improve our upcoming events. I'm going to share now the event agenda of today. So please bear with me for a second. Today, we are in very good company, and our session is going to be moderated by Marcelo Garibotto, who is an artist manager and also a member of the steering committee here at EMA for the Folk and Global Genre Network. Please add your questions to the chat, so we will make sure that they'll get answers. You will have there is a time for a Q&A. And I think that's all from me. So without further ado, Marcelo, over to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Really excited about our discussion today. It's one of the big topics that I have from a lot of my artists. And as Michelle has mentioned, I'm an artist manager. Don't let the accent fool you. My name's like South American Italian. I got this super heavy Aussie accent, but I'm based in Finland, so I am part of the European Association. As I mentioned, this topic's amazing. I think it's something that there's always a lot of grey area around it, and like everything else is great. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed colleagues. We'll start with you, Mark. Maybe if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for having me on today. My name's Mark Dowling. I'm a director of an independent label services company called Absolute Label Services. I've worked in the music business for about 28 years, and for just over 20 of those has been at Absolute, where we were one of the first label services companies in the UK, if not the world, kind of empowering independent artists and labels to get to market and retaining ownership of their copyright.
Thanks, Mark.
No worries.
Sarah, I'll put you on the spot next.
Hi, everyone. Really good to see you. Thank you for turning out. So my name's Sarah Wilson. I run TuneCore. We are an open platform distributor, part of the Believe group. We also lean into early stages artist development. I look after TuneCore for UK, Canada, and Australia. I've been in the industry for about 22 years, I think now. Have a history of running the international department at Beggars. I've been through the Orchard, Universal, and management. So yeah, I've been at TuneCore for about 3 or 4 years now.
Fantastic. And last but not least, we've got a double header for Real World Records. It's Amanda Jones and John Berry. I'll let you guys share your time.
Thank you very much. I'll start off. I'm Amanda Jones, label manager of Real World Records. And like some of you, I'm a lifer at Real World Records, having started at the label when it began in 1988. So I've been with one label for a long time. And you're going to hear from my colleague, John Berry, who's the business affairs manager, who I thought would be very useful to join this discussion because he's got such particular skills in the contract side of things, which is what we're talking about today. But Real World Records has been around for a very long time. It's owned by Peter Gabriel, the musician. It's based at a recording studio in the west of England. The recording studio is independent. Some Real World records are recorded there, but not exclusively all of them. We're also associated with the WOMAD Festival Company. And I guess we're kind of known as a world music label, although I think the label, if you look at, well over 200 releases in our history, we're not exclusively what one might call world music. We have cover an awful lot of different types of music. We're here kind of representing, if you like, the traditional label model. But what that is these days, of course, has changed enormously since the time when I first started working on the label. Anyway, over to John. He's going to introduce himself. John?
Sorry, it's just unmuting myself so I can speak. So yeah, hi, I'm John Berry. As Amanda said, I'm the business affairs manager at Real World. I'm not quite a lifer, but I'm coming up on 20 years now for working for the
That's a life. That's definitely a life sentence, John.
a long time. And I primarily look after things like distribution agreements, as Amanda mentioned, lots of exciting things like P&Ls for new releases and that kind of stuff. I also look after our D2C platform and various bits of rights kind of administration things. So lots of kind of nuts and bolts stuff behind the scenes, away from the exciting world of actually A&Ring and marketing releases.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of the gist of how I'm going to run today's conversations. I'm going to keep it kind of business model centric to understand what each model is like. Again, it's not black and white, it's not cut and dry, but there are some core fundamentals in each of the three models that I think can be clearly described. If we can try to keep the conversation maybe a little bit generic, please feel free to ask questions. The lovely Michelle is going to keep some questions in front of me every now and then if I have to answer them. The idea is that everyone will get through and have a chat for about 30 to 40 minutes, and at the end we'll have a Q&A. It's a really good opportunity to say what you want to say to the industry here. As we all know, music, the exploitation of music is one of the core things that's part of the development of an artist, and also us as managers, it's really important to have that as a key part of what developing an artist is about. I'm going to start off with the ugly conversation, well, ugly or sometimes confusing conversation of the money talk. So I'm going to put it out to all three of you, or sorry, four of you, but three in terms of three groups, in terms of what sort of fees each of the models have, kind of a fee structure and a commission or a royalty management structure, and it's important to understand for what you're getting for what you're giving away as such. I mean, I don't like using the word given away. It's services rendered, really. So I'm going to start with you, Sarah, because I think it's the simplest one to
yeah,
start.
I was going to say that probably makes sense. Kind of,
yeah,
it is.
Yeah.
I guess it's the most transactional one.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to I'll focus on TuneCore because obviously that's the model that I know best, but I will bring in some examples from other kind of DIY distributors as well. So when I joined TuneCore a few years ago, we used to charge per release. So it was a pay per release model. And that was everything from a ringtone, which people still release then, through to a bundle of various credits that you could have. And we realized that actually going through the industry as it is now, you're encouraged to release and create as much as possible. So actually that as a model wasn't really working all that well. So we flipped in 2022 and we became an unlimited pricing structure. So basically we have 3 paid for tiers, ranging from £17 a year up to £45 a year. And for that, you can release as much music by the primary artist on the account as you like. At that point, so at the moment, think about this as essentially a subscription service. So you're paying, let's say, the £45 a year. You can release, 12, 20 releases throughout the year of that primary artist. And at that point, you're not paying any commission on anything at that point. There are certain add-ons that you can have that are commission driven, but for purely distribution release, it is just the fee.
Right. So essentially, it's you pay to have someone put your music up and some extra services like it's possibly
Exactly. So if
facing
you
PR and whatnot.
wanted, say, content ID for YouTube, if you wanted it distributed to social platforms, they are commission bearing. But if you're just going for the straightforward distribution to you know, your standard DSPs globally, that's included in your kind of one-off yearly fee.
Okay.
Some of the other platforms are still pay per release. Some of them have various commission charges as well. You know, it really is, in a world where there's, you know, fierce competition in the DIY space, it really is worth looking very much in detail as to what each platform's model is to make sure that it's the one that you feel suits your kind of releasing properly.
Yeah, and also something that kind of the DIY side of things is also what I call, it's probably not the nicest word, a faceless interface. It's a faceless kind of
I mean, that's
interaction.
something that we've tried to kind of deal with that because we're, and I don't want to make this too much of a sales pitch, but you know, because we're part of the Believe group, we actually have people sat within the Believe group in 13, 14 major territories. So we have tried very much to kind of underline the fact that we've got a local presence in places. But yeah, essentially it's the tech answer to a volume problem.
Awesome. I'm gonna jump over to both Amanda and John for Real World West. Let's go to the end of the spectrum.
Okay, I think John should answer this one because, yeah, we are a much more of a traditional label. Although, as I said, the model of a traditional label has changed a lot, I think, over the last sort of 30, 40 years, from being something which where the artist would receive a relatively small royalty for the engagement of the whole record label. These days, a lot of labels, including Royal Records, work on what we describe as a JV model, which means which it's not really a proper JV, but it's a 50-50 split after cost. But John, you can explain better than me the way that it works.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, the way we tend to work, so I'm just taking a step back from that, we work with a distributor. So we would work with someone like an Absolute, but it's not Absolute in this instance with us. But so when we work with new artists, we generally have, as Amanda said, a 50-50 deal, and that's 50-50 in as much as everything we spend gets recouped against both sides equally, and everything we earn gets split. So in terms of royalty accounting, people just literally see, here's everything, here's your half. So it's very, very straightforward way of working, and it's something that we've been doing for quite a number of years now, actually, since we moved away from the more traditional royalty model, where, you know, labels would take a much higher percentage, but then would absorb a lot more costs and wouldn't expect the artists to recoup those. And I was just thinking, just while everyone was talking then, about how we kind of compare to the DIY and the label services type thing, because we do have to think about that when we're working with new artists, and just kind of how our business is working, because we work on quite a small scale quite a lot of the time. You know, we don't have huge budgets, and we're not able to invest, you know, as much as maybe we were 5 years ago, if not 10 years ago. And so we have to bring maybe a bit more to the table than, because an artist might just say, well, we could just go to do a label services deal. Why would we come to a label if we could just go and do a deal directly with a distributor? You know, we can potentially earn more money that way. And of course, what we have is obviously a profile as a label. We have a history. So we have we've got we have a certain amount of social media stats. We have a mailing list and whatever. We like to think we have a certain fan base, for want of a better word, people that appreciate what we do on the label, and we have our own team as well that we add into the mix each time. So we've got our own in-house designer, we've got video people, you know, we'll give you a dedicated product manager, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how we work, and that's how we we have to think about how everyone else is working these different models as well.
Yeah, as John said, that, for example, there's some of those services, if you like, we would provide design services for a digital or physical release, which are not recoupable costs. They come as part of the relationship with Real World Records. And we have an in-house designer who's a fantastic designer who he's also works out of house. When we have, as John said, we have a photographer and a basic video maker who can provide those services. Again, those are not costs that we recoup against the artist. And also because we're at Real World Studios, we're able to offer a reduced rate within the studio. That doesn't come as free because there are so many costs related to studio recordings, but we have a lot of expertise around to assist artists, engineers, producers. You know, generally what we try to do is kind of hold the artist as much as we can to kind of guide them through if it's their first release.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned John, and as a conversation, I always have to have this conversation with artists. It's like, you know, why would I sign with them when I can just do it with other? I mean, that's a conversation. That's a topic we've got coming up later on,
Right.
down the scale, because we want to keep it to pretty simple. Just the money numbers at the moment. Like, so Mark, since you're kind of like the meat and the sandwich here.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know the idea of the.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm going in the middle or last, because I kind of absolutely kind of sits in the middle of the DIY offering and the traditional. Although Amanda said, you know, the traditional model has changed somewhat as the years have gone on. So absolutely, when it first started back in 1998, essentially, possibly by accident rather than design, we kind of wanted to flip the model on its head. So you'd sign to a traditional label, they would kind of own you in essence, and they'd pay you a royalty. Our model was flipped on its head, where we empowered the independent artist or label, and they would in effect pay us a royalty, and that royalty is paid to us by virtue of an exclusive distribution deal, and that's how we operate in essence. And what we're doing, dependent on the skill sets of the client in question, and what their experiences are and their expectations, and that's a thing we have to manage all the time, is people's expectations, is what services we're basically giving them the opportunity to plug in to a record company setup, providing a service that a record company provides. We do that in-house, they pay for it. We don't own anything. We're kind of pretty risk adverse in the main. I'm talking in very general terms here, because there are cases where we do invest or cash flow, certainly in some cases. So yeah, that's kind of where we sit as a model, really. We provide the service that a record company would provide, but all the rights and ownership and the control, that's one word that's always been ever present in the label services sector, is control, is giving the control back to the rights holder, and we're there holding their hand throughout the whole process, advising them. It's up to them whether they take that advice or not, and then we action it, whether that's via our submissions team, who actually put their music up on digital platforms, or via our physical distribution partners, our retail team, who are, you know, knocking on the doors at all the platforms, pitching for coverage and that kind of thing, through to a whole suite of services we provide to our clients. And our clients are of all ranges, from emerging, big names, multi-genre. Obviously, we're talking about folk today. We have got some folk artists in the roster. And we've got about 1,200 clients now, label clients. So, but we still offer that boutique and bespoke service. We're a team. We're based in the UK. We distribute globally, but we're a team of about 35, 36 people in the UK.
Is it fair to say that the DSP label services model has been, pardon me, I'm battling a flu here. The DSP label services model has kind of been an evolution from the DIY to the major label. Is that, like, I think that's like you hit the nail on the head when you say you flip things on its head. I think the DSP label services, which I've seen, it's been a while now. It's not something new, but I remember 20 odd years back, there wasn't too many people doing the old DSP label services. But
sorry, Marcelo, how do you mean DSP label services?
Sorry, distribution plus label services, because that's
right, yeah.
Like, again, it's from what I see, like from a generic point of view, it's still like a project orientated model, where it's like it's a partnership as such. And I mean, something that you mentioned straight away, which will lead straight into the next topic that I wanted to talk about, was rights management and the ownership of that, of the artists, of the client or the artist's music, I think is important. So you touched on that topic, Mark, and maybe if you could kind of repeat it and expand on that discussion from a
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're empowering the independent sector, and our clients, they retain ownership in their copyright. We don't have any say or any control over their rights. The only rights we have is what they agree to via the contract. Is we have rights to distribute either the label or a specified list of recordings for a term, and then after that term they can then go and shop around and get another deal. It's a very, as Sarah mentioned, it's a very competitive marketplace out there, so they're either free to renegotiate with us for a fresh term, or they can go elsewhere or sign to a label. It's whatever they want to do, but all the rights, you know, sit with them. We're custodians of them for that period of time, for the term, whether that's 3 years or 5 years or even shorter, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think Sarah, I'll go to you, but I think it's a pretty straightforward conversation when it comes to the DIY model.
It is, yeah. I mean, the rights sit with the artist, and the difference here is that you can leave at any point that you wish. So, you know, if you serve notice, you know, the takedown, if you're going to another distributor, there'll be a short period where there's basically the operational side will need to be kind of moved over, but you know, you can leave at any point you wish, which, you know, obviously puts a level of risk kind of on us, depending on what we're kind of leaning into as well. But it's also one of the flexibilities that, you know, that allows people to kind of embrace the model fully.
Yeah, so in this essence, I could pay for my yearly subscription, put the music up there, get it going, and go blow up. My music blows up, and all of a sudden, I get a Mark or Amanda knocking on my door, and I can flip that over.
Exactly. I mean, you know, there's an example. We had Lauren Spencer Smith a few years ago, who, you know, beginning of the year, she'd been on TuneCore for ages, put the track up, track blows up, it's gone top 10, I think, in the UK. Couple of weeks later, Universal sign her. So then it's just, you know, Universal to TuneCore, could you please take this down? Yeah, right, done. So it's, you know, it's very straightforward. There's no kind of right to reply on our front.
It sounds like you could be used a lot, I guess.
I mean, you know, it is the nature of it being an open platform, is there you are carrying that element of risk, certainly when you're trying to kind of budget forward as well.
I'll talk about a little bit of that used risk, which is sometimes I flip this also on the head of when it comes to talking about a business model and the people you have in your team, because there can be a plus and a minus to that. So
yeah.
I'll throw it over to you, Amanda or John, regarding the rights management and ownership.
Go on, over to you.
So obviously we sign agreements with people for a number of years, and that varies. That's obviously something, you know, as managers, when you're signing record deals, you want to negotiate potentially. Typically maybe 10 years, shall we say, but we always have things in place because obviously the label needs to look to try and at least make its money back, or have safeguards against not making its money back. So it would be not unusual to have something like a term unless unrecouped, in which case, you know, you need to recoup the costs. That would be a very simple, you know, explanation of how we would do things.
Yeah, so I guess it is an assignment of copyright, but as John said, the term is negotiable. So it's similar in some ways to an absolute kind of deal where you have a degree of exclusivity for a certain period of time. I mean, you have to do that if you're going to be investing money and picking up a relationship with an artist and spending money on manufacturing and marketing, etc., etc. But as John said, it is a negotiable thing. People don't sign deals with Real World Records, or most labels like us, in perpetuity, which was the scary term that people used to have back in the day, when an artist would sign their copyright in perpetuity, and that would mean that they would never see their music again. That's not how it works with any of us now. But certainly we have to have a period of exclusivity in order to make things work financially, in order to give us the time, in order to try and make a success of the release of the music. So that's how we work.
And just to add to that, we would also have options normally as well, because if the second album is a successful one and we've done all the work on the first album, we'd like a shot at that as well. So that's another factor.
There was two key factors in your conversation. Actually, all three of you brought it up, and one of them is the investment, right? So that's the most important thing to understand about the relationship that you want. What sort of relationship you want with all the three of the business models? Like, if you want, I mean, it'd be nice to have all the investment in the world and no hooks back. I mean, at the end of the day, this is the music business, and it requires a return on investment. If these terms you don't understand, I would suggest get some training on it straight away, because they should be your everyday conversation, especially as managers. And explaining that to artists can be a little tricky at times, but trust me, I've been doing this for like 20 years now and managing my own bands and several bands all over the world, and you've got to continue to have these conversations. So the investment side of things, if you look at, say, and I'm probably going to skip you out of this, Mark, just because I'm using the spectrum. Like, Sarah was saying, okay, well, you pay your 40 or 50 euros, depending on where you come from, Australian dollars, US dollars, and we can take it off away. So you can't expect someone to invest in your art and be part of your team if you're gonna get everything back. And then going to the other end of the spectrum with someone like Real World, where they're going to put their whole team together. I mean, I'm going to talk about the getting your foot in the door conversation, the acceptance of having these opportunities, because obviously the acceptance of the DIY is you just pay the money, you're accepted. But someone along the lines of DSP label services or of a traditional label model, it's kind of like, okay, so it's a two-way street. So you can't expect to have
sorry to interrupt you there, Marcello, but I think that's also one of the differences that needs to be brought up as well. On something like TuneCore, you sign terms and conditions, whereas with with a Real World, with an Absolute, you sign a contract.
100, absolutely. They're just they're terms and conditions and contracts, which are, they sound the same, but they're not the same. So
contracts are negotiable as well. Remember, there are some basic red lines I'm sure that everybody has that they have to adhere to as a business, but otherwise it's up for a discussion.
And that's another complete factor as well, is that essentially you see with a DIY, you get what you see. You see what you get, whichever way you want to see it, and that's it. I don't know. I'm pretty good at negotiating. I don't think I've ever been able to negotiate anything with the DSP, but and I total out there to all the managers, everything's negotiable. Depends how good you are. So don't be afraid when you get a deal on the table. People are prepared for some sort of dialogue conversation. If you're getting the cold shoulder and it's an absolute thing, that's also a red flag sometimes. But,
absolutely. And although obviously as commercial businesses, record companies like us, have to make sense of things as a business. But on the other hand, we want to sign artists in a happy and positive and engaged way. We want everybody to feel like they're part of a team. That's what the kind of JV or joint venture structure means, really. So we're always open for having conversations about things. If there are areas of our agreements that artists are just really unhappy with, we always try and find a way around it.
Yeah, and also you mentioned these perpetuity deals, that they're still out there. I've seen them. And I mean, again, if you don't value your copyright, if you don't value your music, and you want to give it a crack, then why not? I don't know. Again, it all goes down. It's all very bespoke. The conversation you need to have with your artists as a manager, and your strategy is number one. So again, I'm going to keep banging on to this because I think it's really important. But Mark, I'm going to go to you in terms of contract terms as well, and what tips? I mean, I know this is a prickly question because it can be anything. Again, I just spoke about negotiating, but I mean, something like, if we talk about the spectrum, the medium, like in the middle of the bell curve type.
Obviously, it's all quite relatively sensitive. So obviously, I can talk in general terms. Obviously.
General terms, 100%. General terms for.
So, in terms of the term, I think the lowest term we would go to is a year, and then we go up to 5 to maybe 6, 7 years as a term. Again, these are all bespoke conversations. It depends on the people we're talking to, their wider teams, our appetite for a deal. And as Amanda said, a good deal is a deal that's, seems fair and works for both sides. It's not top heavy or lopsided. In terms of a distribution percentage, again, that does vary. It varies from, I would say, 15% all the way up to 30%. I would say at the top end of that is where we are cash flowing and we're providing an advance to put towards, be it manufacturing, marketing, promotional teams, that kind of thing. So that higher end is where the kind of 30% is. They're the kind of two main points, really. We do have some costs that are within the contract, it could be some encoding costs. It could be us applying for an official artist channel on YouTube, which are quite time intensive, to social media verification and things like that. We also have our own in-house smart URL, a bit like it's called Slinky, but it's a bit like Linkfire, which is we've developed over the last 3-4 years, which is very, very powerful because it acts as a pre-save and a buy stream now link, which we provide to artists, and it collects a whole raft of data, which we can then use to embed retargeting pixels to when it comes to spending money on digital marketing. It makes your digital spend that much more efficient. So there's a small cost if you wanted to use that functionality of ours at Absolute. They're the kind of main headline terms, I'd say. And then, as I said before, anything else on top of that is part of the negotiation, or, if you want us to make your vinyl for you, your CDs, if we're not cash flowing it for you, we will then make that for you. But that would be your cost. Again, if you want to spend 50 quid on a Facebook campaign or £5,000 on a Facebook advertising campaign, that would be your cost. But we would manage the whole process for you. We would plan the campaign, put it in front of you. You would sign it off, we would execute it, and then feed back the results for you. So again, coming back to the fact that we are acting as your record label for you, but you're making all the decisions and the calls, and we're just holding your hand through the process, really. Sorry, it's a very long-winded answer, but I hope
No, that's actually great, because you're helping me feed into the questions I'm going to put the other two. And the beauty part about it, it's also what's important to understand is, like, I can imagine that a lot of managers now go, well, where do I start? Where do I finish? I think it's important to understand. Firstly, it's important to shop around, number one, and understand who's got the best services based on the strategy that you have for your business model for your artist. Number two. Number three, understand where you're sitting in the return on investment kind of scale, if you think of it. If your artist is doing really well and there's money coming in, then you've got better power negotiating. Or if you're doing more of a development artist, which I like to do, I like to find the diamonds in the rough and get them to a certain point, and that's what makes me happy. I have less bargaining chips, so that's you got to try to work out where you're at, and there's no formula for it. If there was, I wouldn't be here. I'd be rolling in the Bahamas. But by the crystal ball, like they say. But so the terms are flexible. I'm going to go to Amanda and John for the next question, because I think that it's pretty straightforward with Sarah for now. But about contract terms and durations, what are some general, perhaps, I don't know, starting points? Again, being not being specific, we'd like to keep the IP and the privacy rights that they are. Do you have any comments on that, John, Amanda?
John, do you want to go for it? It's difficult not to sound like we're kind of selling our real records.
I know.
You have to kind of haul back from saying, yeah, but we do this and we do that, but we obviously, what we do is we front all the money. So we're like a bank that if you never sell a bean, you don't never have to pay back. So there are obviously risks to our business, as it were, where we're fronting everything: the manufacturing, the whole lot, the design, the creation of the product, and helping the artist through the process. But we're paying all. That's the difference, really. We're paying all those costs, and we do all the decisions we make are done with the artist in close association with the artist. We see this as a partnership. So if somebody wanted to spend £5,000 on Facebook marketing, you know, we would work together with the artist to maybe make a better decision on that, but we do things together. Anyway, John, on specifics, do you want to make some points?
Well, I mean, we talked already about the kind of terms that we would work with and how the contracts would work. I don't know, just to add in maybe to that, what Amanda said about how we work in 50-50 and it being a collaborative thing. I think we've probably found that makes for a better working relationship with the artists and with their management, where everyone's kind of on board on the same. It's even though we're fronting the money, you know, they're seeing half of that on their accounting. So no one's looking for us to go and, you know, an old style deal, you might be pushing your label to go and spend, you know, however many thousands of pounds on some marketing thing because it was their cost, but now it's a shared cost. I think it makes for just a better working relationship with.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much more transparent. And John, as I'm sure a lot of labels do, puts a whole, you know, P&L together for the album project. So you can see exactly where money's coming in, what costs are, you know, and what are the best deals that we can get from external PR companies or whatever, and where all that money's going. So the artist manager can see that at any point.
And the only that just kind of related to we kind of moved past when we talked about royalties earlier, but someone asked a question. Can I answer that, Marcelo, about the royalties are split, the 50-50? So Johanna Ayres asked, because I think there's an important point on that. So we work on net receipts of income. But when we say net receipts, we mean net receipts. So and by that, I mean, if an artist buys stock from us, we're giving that what they pay us, they're getting half of that back again, which is an important one. And also,
yeah, I think that's a really important point. By stock, that means buying CDs and LPs for an artist to sell on tour.
Yeah,
which is something that we really encourage.
Yeah, so they buy that, they get their retail margin, which we don't get anything of. We don't expect them to give anything from that. But for whatever they pay us for the stock, then they get half of that back. Of course, they would have paid half to get that stock made in the first place as well. But what they get back is more than what the stock cost, obviously. And then the other thing on that would be neighbouring rights, that all the money that comes in from neighbouring rights from PPL and around the world, we put that in as net receipts. And I know a lot of, well, perhaps major labels don't necessarily look at it that way. But yeah, as far as we're concerned, everything that comes in is all good to be shared.
I'm going to be the devil's advocate here because I think there's some similarities between label services and a traditional label. I mean, what the artist pays, they all pay, right? But I think the difference is also in terms of the contract terms for, say, like a major label where some of the advances can be non-recouped. Some of them are non-recoupable and some of them are recoupable. But so that's something that has, again, back on the negotiating table based on where you're at. And also with the neighbouring rights, I'm not sure about absolute, Mark, but I know with
we do neighbouring rights collection. We collect directly from about 25 CMOs globally. So yeah, we do neighbouring rights collection. Yeah.
So again, there's some fine lines in between. Again, it's in terms of I think more from a rights management, also contract term duration. The durations seem to a lot longer. So if they want the partnership to be a bit longer, you can see that you're really falling in love with the team that you work with. Like everyone can go as long as they want with anyone, right? Even with TuneCore, if you want to be there with them 10 years, you just keep paying the yearly fee and you get 100%. So again, it's important to understand the differences where your business model and the strategy are as artists. But so if we're going to talk about, Sarah, like again, your terms are pretty straightforward. I'd say that's 12 months.
But one of the things that I was going to say in terms of where part of your subscription fee goes as well is, you know, being a tech platform, it goes into that kind of technological development in terms of kind of, you know, making the product better for the artist as well.
Yeah, true. Absolutely. We kind of touched on advances and recoups. Again, I think, Sarah, it's pretty straightforward with when it comes to TuneCore. There's really no advances to recoups. Mark, I'm going to throw it back to you. How does it kind of work with label services like yourselves?
Again, it's not one. There's no one size fits all. It depends on the level of artist we're talking to, the amount of money they're requesting, what that's for, if they've got any sales history, if it's a calculated risk, and how safe a risk that is for us. So it really just depends on the artist in question, really.
Yep.
But it is repayable at the end of the term or after a specified term within the term, specified time within the term. It is repayable. Because we're not owning anything throughout the whole process. So we certainly wouldn't have been in business in our 27th, 28th year had we, cash flowed 1,200 plus labels. We certainly wouldn't be here. It would the success rate isn't otherwise I'd be in the Bahamas with you. Well, not with you, but I'd be in
Anything wrong with that?
Yeah. So it depends. I mean, obviously you've got the kind of the established artists. I'm not saying we have cash flowed these, but the likes of Van Morrison, who is a current client, or Kaiser Chiefs, Feeder, where we know we're quite confident in cash flowing X amount of money towards manufacturing and promotion, because we know, if it doesn't go as well as planned, there'll be a flaw to what that record will do. So it's a bit of a no-brainer in terms of us cash flowing it. I think that the interesting one is when there's a newer artist that we really love. Do we cash flow and put a bit of seed money onto the table for them? And then I think part of our job as well is telling artists and managers when the right time is to spend that money as well, because sometimes we get clients who are fresh out the studio and they're really excited and they've got some budget together, whether they've raised it independently or through investors, and they want to throw money left, right, and center at things. And it's like, no, you need to build your audience first. You need to do it gradually, and these things do take time, and it's super competitive out there, as we all know. And try and get yourself heard above the noise, and there is a right time to spend that money, and sometimes we need to tell them just to hold back a bit.
Especially coming into this time of the season where they're trying to get your noise down, meta rates need to go up at 30% before you can start to kind of get above that noise.
Absolutely.
There's a question here from Arthur about the models, which we'll touch on. I think you touched on a fair bit. In something also that you mentioned was, they have, like, label services have advances and they have like time frames. So if you're asking for a lot of cash or an advance, and you have a small period to get it back, you have to understand that at some point someone's going to come knocking on the door for the balance, correct? So that's something to really think about. Again, as managers, we need to really, at point, I'm the under promise over deliver type of guy. I kind of say, if I want 15, I'll ask for 10, and I can always ask for more later on down the track. So that's kind of like
that's a good point. I mean, if we agree a deal and we agree to cash flow a certain amount of money, and then 6 months in we can see some money coming down the line, then we're happy to have another conversation. Say, look, we know X amount of money is coming towards us collectively as a partnership. We're comfortable to cash flow X amount more to then use on whatever manufacturing. And to Arthur's asked me a question in terms of customer retention. I mean, our model isn't designed just to keep our clients penned in, but we do have a very low churn rate. I think at the last time we looked earlier on this year, it was under 0.2%. So I think when clients are with us, they tend to stay with us. Obviously, we've had cases where they've gone off and signed to labels, and then in some cases they've come back. We used to work with Imogen Heap. About 15 years ago. Then we did really well with an album of hers, and then she went into the Sony system, an Epic, and then she came back to us to release her album back in 2018, I think it was. So we know where we are in the marketplace, and we know that we've got artists coming up and leaving us, and coming back to us. So yeah, and that's what I'd say to that question, Arthur.
Great. Amanda, John, on your take on advances and recruitment structures, knowing that you're in it for the longer game, can be a bit scary.
Well,
right?
maybe if a quick introduction from the kind of philosophy of the label, really, which does influence the decisions that are those made. I mean, because Real World Records, it has been around for a very long time and is very artist-led, which has meant that we do sign artists that are perhaps music which is more challenging or more obscure, and for us, kind of more exciting, but more risky. Maybe we'd be in the Bahamas too if we'd made some different decisions back in the day. But because we're not, you can see what kind of a label we are. Very artist driven, and which means that the A&R is kind of light touch, and we're there to kind of guide musicians. We don't bring, because we don't have huge budgets, we don't bring a kind of heavy A&R strategy to things. It's very much a partnership. But obviously the nature of the deal that we're able to offer artists is dependent on commercial considerations. Otherwise, as you've said, we wouldn't exist for all these years. You have to be careful. And so some of those things, those decisions are based after we've fallen in love with the music and decided we just would love to find a way of working with a particular artist. I think there are serious things these days: Spotify profile, touring history, and obviously the potential touring, future touring, because as we've mentioned, selling physical music on tours is an incredibly important part of our business. John runs a D2C. We've got our own kind of online store, but artists taking their product out onto the road, making friends, building their fan base, selling their music, and actually making money selling their music, both as a retailer and as the royalties, John's explained, is very important. And obviously we want artists that are happy to engage in social media, happy to, support their own marketing initiatives in partnership with us. We can't carry the load exclusively ourselves. So those are important things from my point of view when we're making decisions about which artists we're going to sign. John, I don't know if you've got any other points you want to add to that.
About signing.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, and about the kind of commercial decisions we have to make.
Yeah. Well, it's mixed. So we obviously ideally we'd like someone that's got really great Spotify stats and got a good sales history, and we go, oh, brilliant, we know what we're going to say. And sometimes they come along, and that's brilliant for me, who puts together the budgets, but but not always. And some, so there's not a hard and fast rule really. If Amanda just really loves the music, then we can. And it's someone that's undiscovered or doesn't really have a profile, then we'll work with that as well. So there's no real rules, but I guess we can't do that all the time. We have to balance it out.
And then if it's a new artist or somebody that doesn't have that profile, we will work with the artist for a long time before we actually get to the release. It will be our job to work with the artist to build that fan base. So whatever that strategy would be, releasing singles or EPs or getting artists out, helping artists get out onto the road, there is no point in releasing a new record into a vacuum, because it will just completely disappear. You've got to have some kind of fan base before. Fan base is a strange sort of term, but some kind of foundation of support, of excitement and interest to which you need to sell your music.
I like to use the word audience.
Audience. Yeah.
That's my motto.
Yeah, fan base, stupid term.
Fan
audience.
base, audience. The people, it's bums on seats. We have this saying in Australia, it's called bums on seats.
Yeah, absolutely. And so long as there's a core, a foundation, you can build on that. But you've got to get that excitement. So much of the work is in the 6 months, 9 months leading up to an album release. All the work has to go in there in order to make that impact when you release your record and there are people out there who want to buy it or want to stream it.
I think the key point there is that I think all three models would want this. It's not, I'm pretty sure that the TuneCore is not sitting there waiting to get like their €50 per year per artist. They actually want to see some success, because if they have success, then they get more customers and whatnot. So it's not just...
And I mean, just to give you an example, when I joined a few years ago, it still had that kind of feeling of, oh, you self-distribute, oh, I'm really sorry, like a label's not interested in you. And even in those kind of 3-4 years, the change in attitude from the industry, from managers, from all the various stakeholders, you can see how much that's changed, and actually people can see a value in that choice. For instance, we work with Forever Living Originals, who's Salt, Pleo, Soul, Inflow, and they use TuneCore for majority of their releases, and they're absolutely enormous. Equally, someone like Roisin Murphy has moved over to us, and we're starting to see that actually people are sitting down and looking at what model is right for them at that time. Because like I say, you can move at any time, you know, and it might be that you just want to do one release through TuneCore. You know, there's an example of Joss Stone who wanted to put out a live album out of contract, you know, didn't fit with the contract that she had. So she's like, right, okay, I'll put that out through TuneCore. So it's, you know, it can be used as that kind of additional flexibility as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're up to the final question, and I'm going to hand it over to everyone for more questions, and we'll go through the list there. Track record and acceptance. So I'll continue with you, Amanda and John. Like, I mean, this is difficult. It's a difficult one. I understand.
I mean, I suppose I've kind of gone some way in answering that in my last little, you know, comments I've made about how we make decisions about how to sign an artist. Music first, commercial second, but commercials have to make sense. Otherwise, we're not going to be around to sign anybody in the future. So I think I've probably covered most of that. I think the thing to do is to remember a small record label like Real World has a limited number of releases it can make each year. You know, we're a small team. We just don't have the capacity to do lots of records. Some contracts that we sign with artists are for multiple records or options for multiple records, in which case we may have quite a few relationships running at the same time where we're on our second or maybe third record. And some projects we do are just one-off special things, which are only one album. But, you know, so we have to say no a lot of the time just because we don't have the capacity to pick up everything that we want. And I guess I've kind of covered really what are, you know, what the expectations are when we're talking to artists.
Mark?
Yeah, I think the only thing that we didn't mention, which is the obvious one, which is touring, is obviously very appealing to all of us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Label. You come to a label, we said we've got a new record we want to put, and we've got this big tour coming up. Okay. That's a lot more interesting than no live dates coming up, because obviously that's something that we can get stuck into.
Yeah.
There's a conversation, there's a question in there by Shane about 360s, but we'll get down to the Q&A. Mark, just and also analytics, the analytics side of things. Because I think
as Amanda said, analytics are important, and we'd look at all the stats that are available to us in terms of, you know, monthly listeners and streams and previous sales and stuff like that. But in the absence of that, firstly, whilst we're not A&R based, we need to, you know, the music's got to be of a certain standard. And then secondly, and probably most importantly, we need to make sure that we've got resource available and someone internally, because each project has a label manager which kind of steers the project. So there's capacity there as a capacity kind of consideration, but the kind of cherry on top is we need to be able to make sure we can add value and actually help a project and steer it forward, and we can see a pathway. So if we can tick all those boxes, we've got capacity, we can see a way forward, and we like the people involved, then it makes for a good call to be made to kind of enter into an agreement with them. So yeah.
And Sarah, I think the acceptance required.
Yeah, I mean the acceptance, you know, obviously as long as you're not breaking any of the DSP rules in terms of what can actually be distributed. But you know, we also have an interest in kind of making sure that, you know, there aren't hundreds of thousands of releases that are just sitting at 0 streams, you know, especially with the change of DSP payouts as well. So, you know, we have definitely got an onus on trying to help get people between the various kind of streaming brackets, you know, getting them up above 1,000 streams so that you can start to pull a royalty from every stream they're on. And, you know, so it's not, whilst it's open in terms of the sense that there isn't an A&R, we're still leaning into that success.
Okay, well, we've run into last 5 minutes of it. I've got a question here from Shane Power. Shane's asked here, are there any 360 deals being offered in the current climate, examples with some of the type of tour support being recouped from tickets, or do artists generally keep their agents' tours to themselves, so to speak?
Well, I could answer on Real World Records first quickly. We don't do 360 deals. We're just so delighted that our artists are touring that the last thing we would want to do would be anything to undermine our artists' ability to earn money and be successful touring, because it's an essential part of the plot. I can remember back in the day when I think it was EMI was one of the first big 360 deals with Robbie Williams. And that would have been untold amounts of money and probably the sale of trainers and God knows what else. Real World Records is just not even close to that kind of business. So we definitely wouldn't be doing any 360 deals in the way of getting into investing in touring or earning money from artists touring. However, in small ways, we support touring. We'll design and print posters, or we'll make sure that everything's sorted on mailing lists, or, you know, the really practical grassroots stuff. But other than that.
And if there's cost involved, they'll be on a recoupable basis.
Yeah, well, I mean, we do a lot of favors as well. We do a lot of favors. So, yeah, we have a designer in-house and we'll design and print posters for artists if necessary. But yeah, the days of significant tour support are over from our point of view. And I think for a lot of small independent labels like us, it's probably true too.
I'm taking a punt that TuneCore don't do 360 deals.
No, we don't. Sorry. Well, not sorry, because I don't really agree with them. But yeah.
I'm pretty sure, Mark, that Absolute aren't a 360.
No, we don't get involved in that. I mean, we don't really get involved in the live side, save for and it's quite a big area for us these days, is D2C. So we help and partner with promoters to sell tickets as part of the bundle with the CD and vinyl and merch and stuff like that. But no 360s. Okay,
great. So everyone here, you don't have to sell your soul. So I've got a question from Marina. Does any of the three companies works to provide music sync opportunities as a possible source of income from recordings, or just distribution and DSP albums, etc.?
We do some pitching. We also have a publishing company, so that if an artist signs to the record label and to the publishing, that is helpful, because then we're what you can call a one-stop shop when you've got sync opportunities. You know, we don't have a big agency pushing out to sync, but on the other hand, because we've been around for a long time, and also, to be honest, because we've got Peter Gabriel at the head, we do get a lot of incoming sync requests. And we are very experienced in doing deals on behalf of artists to help them get sync deals over the line.
Similarly, oh, sorry, Mark.
You go, Sarah.
Okay. I was going to say, similarly to what Amanda just said, Believe, our parent company, purchased Centric Music last year, so we now offer a publishing and sync arm as well. So again, one-stop shop in a slightly different model to Real World.
And yes, we do offer sync opportunities. We, by virtue of being around the block a few years, we've got our own contacts that we receive briefs for. So, but yeah, we pitch, and there's no cost for pitching. We just commission it if the rights holder agrees to whatever opportunity is in front of them. And we do have a publishing company as well, but that's more to kind of facilitate, and they're very, very flexible terms, and to make sure that the publishing income is being collected properly and on time, if that's a good thing for the artist in question.
I think just for artists and managers to remember that we are again in a very different world on sync income as we were 20 odd years ago. Back in the day, there were large sums of money to be made for sync for film and advertising, and that is definitely not the case now, unless a film is looking for a massive hit artist. You know, if they want a Charlie XCX clip, they'll do the deal with the record company for the film. It's almost like that will start before they even create the music for the film. From the kind of world that we're in, there is definitely money to be made, and for some artists, really good money, but there's no guarantee. And I think artists have to control their expectations about the income that can be sought from syncing music for film and advertising. You know, I wish it were other, and you can pitch and pitch and pitch, and sometimes things just never connect.
Yeah, I don't think you should put it in your business model.
No, I agree. It's what they call the gravy, isn't it, these days?
Yeah,
free money. Yeah.
The sync conversation's another hour and a half easy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap up a little bit. I just want to back up all the mentions. Don't forget to join the WhatsApp group. All the managers here. The links are in the chat. Also, there's a contact list as well. Share your contacts. Don't be afraid to reach out. And also, October 8 is going to be the India Spotlight. So I'm going to hand it over to Michelle, and she's going to wrap up for us. Did I
Thank
answer
you
all
all so
questions?
much. Yes, that was amazing. Thank you to our guests and also Marcelo for your generosity with your time and your knowledge. I'm sure we could do another hour of this
Yeah, we could.
conversation. But yeah, Marcelo said it all. Follow us on social media, sign up for to our mailing list, follow us on WhatsApp. Follow us, join the WhatsApp group, and join us next Tuesday for our market spotlight on India. Thank you all so much, and hopefully see you soon. Take care.